hmm
Welcome to the SoNo Show, episode 30, Deutschland Perspective. One of the things that I enjoy doing since I began streaming on this channel, I've got the window open. Boomer tech issues right there. Um, One of the various things that I enjoy doing on this channel is that I like to get different perspectives on various subjects of interest. I love to speak with our people from the various lands all across the world and give them a chance to get their thoughts and ideas out there. I have spoken with several of our guys from various nations, from England to Bulgaria, all the way down to South Africa and Australia. Although I haven't ever traveled abroad and rarely leave Southern Appalachia, I believe it is important for us to study the struggles of the native Europeans in different and faraway lands. There is information worth gleaning from these different perspectives because our struggle is one and the same, however, with differing caveats and aspects. Today, I'm joined by a good friend who I have wanted to talk to for 2 or 3 years now. How are you doing tonight, Ratatoskr? Everything going well?
Everything all right, basically. Yeah.
That's good to hear. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on here. It's like we were just talking about earlier before we went live. It seems like here in America, there is a severe lack of knowledge on what is truly going on in Germany. Of course, our media, that the news that we receive from your land is heavily curated, heavily modified by our media apparatus. Anyways, Ratatoskr, how long have you been producing content and videos?
So my first video was actually in 2017, I think. And back then I I read the Germania by Tacitus.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I,
sir.
I read this book for the first time. I knew about its existence, and yeah, I knew that there's some funny passages in it concerning the consumption of beer and stuff like that,
Yes.
which we found funny as kids. But I never read it, and I just casually got it in my hands, and I read it. I remember I read it in the Straßenbahn, like the tram, and it's a very short book, and I read it just like that in a couple of maybe half an hour or an hour, and I was totally blown away, like my mind
Yes.
was actually blown by this book. And this was because everything written in there was so natural to me. It was like, yeah, of course, like, yeah, sure, and I felt so how do you say, um
It was like,
confirmed, can you
yes,
say,
it
like my
affirmed your identity.
yeah, my identity and my beliefs were completely affirmed and confirmed by what was written there, and it was
Yes.
completely unexpected. And I also was so surprised by the whole moral categories, like by how you say, this is Christian morality, like staying together with your wife and having a lot of kids. You thought this was like Christian ideas, but in
No, it's not.
Tacitus, it's actually, completely barbarian, and
Yes,
pre-Christian.
it is.
And stuff like that. And then I made this video, which is still on my channel, which is called basically I called it like the German woman or something, according to Tacitus. What's the German woman is all about. And I took all the quotes I could find from Tacitus about the woman and the marriage. And because this was, as I said, the most fascinating part,
Yes.
like basically the piety of the Germanic people, how you
Yes.
could say. And yeah, then I made this video about it, and I contrasted it with like the whole moral abyss that is our media and our system right now, like nowadays. And I made this video collage about it, and this was basically my first YouTube video. And yeah, that's when I started. And then I continued doing or I don't know if this was actually my first one. Maybe I did some little and small stuff before that,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
I think I would say I've watched 80% of your videos. There's some of the older ones that I've not seen yet. I believe the first one I seen of yours was back in 2019. It was the German Doomer
Yeah.
video. German,
Funny.
yeah, and you did a very good job of capturing the plight of a lot of young Native European men, a lot of young Native Germans, and even here in Appalachia, that is a very real and dire problem for our
Mhm.
people. I was just going to ask you. I ask about every guest that I have on here. What was it? When did you become like racially aware? Would you say?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because um, the term racial awareness is actually a very interesting term because it's like a double layer, you know, like you become racial aware subconsciously, you are racial aware,
When you're a
but
child, I would argue.
yeah, I don't know how to say it. Um, but at some point, you become really aware. You become aware that you are racially aware, something like that.
Yes, it's like
So
those two
and
layers. Those
yeah,
two
exactly,
layers, you could
exactly.
say.
And I noticed this. I became racially aware also around the time of this migrant crisis when this started, because it really catapulted a lot of these sentiments, and it also um, for example, I had these normal positions of my ideas that I had since childhood, basically since my school times, you know, which were always considered completely normal ideas. And suddenly, during this migrant crisis, I had conversations with my family where my completely normal ideas were suddenly, deemed Nazi and racist, you know. And
Yes,
this was something that really um, puzzled me and made me, yeah, aware that there's something going on. But then I basically started to recapitulate my own history and what happened in my history, and a very particular a very how do you say a phase in my life that changed me a lot was when I went after school. I went to South America for like 2 years, and I traveled around there, you know, and I got in contact with Brazilian culture, and I learned Portuguese, and you know, I went there really diving into this land and trying to become part of it, you know, and being like this world citizen that, you know,
yes,
like an a Brazilian by choice or something like that, you know.
I
But
understand.
later, but later in later years, I totally revised what I experienced back then, and I've realized that no, basically for the most time during this traveling period, I was completely depressed, you know,
Yeah,
but I didn't admit this to myself. And and the funny thing is that I went to Brazil and to South America as a German, as a proud German, and as a kind of national romantic person, you know, like I was never really right wing or, you know,
you were
but
kind
I
of
was, I,
apolitical, you could say.
yeah, I apolitical national romantic, you know, the Schiller and Goethe kind of guy, you know, like the who loved the poetry, who loved the old architecture, who
Yes,
basically just loved Germany for what it is, you know, without all the political stuff, you know.
yes, yes.
And so I loved my country, I loved my people, and I went like this to Brazil, and I was very well received, you know, and people loved me as well, and I had no problem getting into contact with people. But at some point, I started adopting this multicultural and world citizen attitude where I deemed myself a Brazilian, and I started shunning my own country, you know, like
Your own
Germans, there's,
heritage, you could say.
yeah, and my own people, the Germans, they're so cold, you know, and you know, they
Yeah,
have a
that
and
stereotype is everywhere.
and yeah, it's weird, but it's complete bullshit actually.
It
But
is.
the funny thing is, I adopted this, and from this moment on, I became actually completely depressed, and I also my whole charisma, you could say, was gone. You know, I couldn't get into contact with people anymore, even in Brazil. And I went various times. I went to Brazil, and the consecutive times I was not so well received, and I was just, you know, stumbling around and not getting along and not getting anything done basically, and being unhappy all the time. And this whole time lasted quite a long time, even when I was back in Germany. And during this period, basically this period of upheaval with the migrant crisis and with my family, all going crazy, um, I found back to my roots basically, and I
Yeah.
accepted my roots again. And just from that moment on, like that, I was happy again. And
Yes.
I realized how extremely important this your own heritage is, and accepting your own heritage and not trying to be something else.
Exactly.
And then I looked back at the experiences I had in South America, and I remembered episodes like this, when I was like sleeping at some students' home, the people who I met on the street. Hey, you get in contact, you talk to them, and blah, and yeah, you want to come over and sleep at our place? Yeah, why not? Have some lunch. And I remember the student home in Argentina, and at this night we were drinking something and having conversation there. And one of these guys was a blonde and blue-eyed guy, and I looked at him, and I told to myself, I know this person,
Yes.
I know this man, because he reminded me of a friend I had, a casual friend. When I was a teenager, we went to these internet gaming places, and had our clan wars there and whatever,
Yeah.
computer games. And I remember, like, was some casual friend I had there, not really a close friend, but I knew this face, and I knew
Yes.
exactly this attitude, and it was like, I know this guy.
Yes.
He was like
There was
reborn,
a
but he was speaking Spanish, but he still had the same mannerisms, and the same attitude, and it was obvious that this was not the typical Argentinian or indigenous guy from there. And
yes.
it was so obvious that this was a, a German guy. But I only realized that later, later, when I said, when I found myself again, I remembered these episodes, and I was like, yeah, this is so deep, like the
Yes.
and also what I remember from this conversation in the student club, in this student house. I remember that I felt this warmth, and this affinity, because in South America, as a German, at first you feel welcome and received, and you feel this warmth. They are very friendly and opening to outsiders. But at some point, it's kind of swaps around,
It
and it
wears off, you
changes.
could say. It
It
wears
wears
off.
off, and then you are the stranger again, and you notice that you're not like them, and they
Yes.
don't. They basically, it's not that they hate you, but they know that they are different, that you are different, and they
It's
stick to
like
themselves. Like, for example, Brazilians, when they come to Germany, they will never say, "Yeah, I'm a German now." They will say, "No, I'm a Brazilian, and I will only meet with Brazilian people and party with them, and the Germans are ridiculous."
it's
That's the
it's
Brazilian
shocking.
attitude, and they're very nationalistic, actually, as well.
Yeah.
But with this guy, I felt like this instant affinity, like,
Yes.
yeah, I felt just relaxed, being with
It
this
was a
guy.
recognition. You
Yeah,
recognized each
I
other.
just felt relaxed. And only later I realized, yeah, you just met one of your kind.
Yes, and
That's why you felt relaxed, and
that's exactly
at ease.
correct.
So
That's
so
exactly right.
and most of the, like, many people, I think, nowadays live in denial about these facts, that they have their own people, their own affinity. And yeah, I mean, basically most of these Antifa types who are blonde and blue-eyed, but basically hate themselves, and you know they'll live in denial, basically.
Yes. Those types are just, even though they may appear phenotypically truly Aryan, they're not. There's a lot of white people in the world, and I don't know what your opinion on the word Aryan is. I know some people in our circles view it with disdain and think it's the wrong term. I used to be in that camp, but over time I've kind of just changed my position, I guess. Um, Dude, someone could be extremely Nordic looking, or I should say, but mind and soul and spirit, they are just completely damaged, and they are not what they should be. I think that's what you describe with these Antifa types. Um, I was going to ask you. I was never aware that you had traveled to South America. I've heard that there is in Brazil, especially southern Brazil. There's a lot of the people there have a lot of their European heritage still intact, especially in
Yeah,
Argentina. I have read.
yeah.
Is that the? Did you ever have to travel north in Brazil? Because that's where I've heard a lot more of the indigenous types are.
Yeah, I was basically I passed through most parts of Brazil, and I spent most times in the center, basically in a region called Minas Gerais, which
Okay.
is very mixed, but very yeah, black and indigenous. Um, but are you still there? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But I also passed through southern Brazil, which is very European. Like I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of Germans, Portuguese, Italians who settled there, maybe some Polish, and also northern Argentina, and also Uruguay. Basically, are they're quite it's quite white actually. Like
Yeah.
Buenos Aires, Uruguay is very white, and
That's that
Paraguay
matches.
also has some Europeans. Yeah, it's true. And I actually went. I went on a trip with a guy I met on travels. Uh, I lived with this guy in Buenos Aires for some time, and then we went off riding on a bike through Uruguay and southern Brazil, basically, like a 600 kilometers or so. We went on bike for a
Oh
couple of
wow.
weeks,
Yeah.
and was a nice thing. And yeah, we met in southern Brazil. We stopped with our bikes at a little farmhouse, and there was actually a guy, coming out and asking us, uh, "Sans Deutsche Leid?" So he asked, like, "Are you German people?"
Yeah.
But he had this accent from like 100 years ago, and
That's awesome.
it was not easy to understand them. We talked to them in German, but they had the accent and also the attitude of like 100 years ago, completely conservative. And yeah, back then we were now in this multicultural world citizen attitude, this guy and me, and we looked down upon them basically, like, oh, these backwards people, but so I think if I met these people nowadays, I would have a completely different conversation with them.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's what you describe here is somewhat similar to my own personal experiences. How you mentioned that you kind of used to frown on your heritage. I used to kind of frown on my heritage just a tad bit back when I was in college. Going to college was a terrible mistake, in my opinion. I've got a degree that I will never use.
Mm,
It was just a waste, and I mean, I picked up a lot of bad habits, you could say, when I was in college
yeah,
that I didn't have beforehand. But I know you know, a lot of people they hated my accent because my accent is a very thick Southern Appalachian accent, or a hillbilly accent is just what I call it.
yeah.
And when you're in college, people will think that you are stupid. Oh, look at the youngin there. Look at that.
That's the
Look at that
boy.
boy. Look at him. That's the
Yeah,
prize. That's the prize fighter
yeah.
right
I,
there.
I I didn't want to interrupt you actually, but
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Always happy to see some healthy native European children.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, man, I know even when I started this YouTube channel and I had been out of college for 8 years, in some of my old videos, I catch myself. I try to disguise my accent. I try to make it
yeah,
more generic, but
yeah,
over time, I'm just like, you know what? Screw it.
yeah.
Anyways, I'm just curious. Did you ever make it to America by chance, the United
No,
States?
not North America, but this is also another one of these encounters that I remember from my travels. You know, um, and I know that I was always quite a romantic person, and interested in in girls, and
Yeah.
finding women beautiful and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I had my problems with this very promiscuous attitude of Brazilians, basically, or like South Americans, and also travelers in general, you know. And so I found these Southern women very attractive, and you know, they have, you know, they are very erotic, you could say. You know how they dance. They really know how to dance. You know, like
Yes.
this is also an interesting observation that I made when I came back from South America. I worked in a bar, and they had in the at the night, it was just a normal you know, dance club, but at the night sometimes they had these dancers on the pole, you know.
Yeah, the strip, like a strip club,
And
you could
not
say.
really strip, but
Just a nightclub,
they wore clothes, but they were dancing at this
scantily
pole,
clad
and trying to make sexual
movements.
poses, you know. But to me, then it looked so utterly, completely ridiculous, you know, and so forced, because any Bolivian or Brazilian woman, you know, or young lady that is in a salsa club and is just doing some very simple moves, looks so extremely feminine and so extremely attractive, you know, like they actually know how to move attractively, you know. It's just an interesting comparison that I also later drew. But apart from that, I didn't have many, you know, contacts with the other sex, so to say, down there, because I was, yeah, it was difficult, you know, to connect, to actually connect with these women.
Yes.
Um, but I know that by my you know, multicultural attitude, I was like, yeah, maybe I will marry. I will stay with a Bolivian woman and marry her. You know, it's like you were making these thoughts, you know. But then actually, I met this American girl. You know, I'm coming back to your point. You know, have I ever been to America? You know, but I met this blonde and blue-eyed U.S. woman. You know, young woman, girl,
Yes.
and I actually spent just 2 days with her. You know, and you know, traveling around a little bit and talking, and when we said farewell to each other, we actually kissed. You know,
Yeah.
and just a friendly, you know, very warm, casual kiss, and I never saw her again. But these 2 days with this woman also were like a complete, you know, we didn't have any sex or something. You know, I'm not really this kind of guy,
Yes.
but I mean, what I was trying to say is that all the encounters with the South American women were always, I don't know, in hindsight, just clunky, you know, like it's there's something. I
There
mean,
was
it's
something
interesting, it's
missing,
fun.
I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
it's interesting. It's fun to talk with the girls, and you know, to chat and whatever. It's nice, you know, also exchanging cultural ideas, you know, or like just talking about, yeah, I'm this guy, you know, and wow, in school it was like this, and you know, you just exchange some stories, and it's obviously fun and interesting. But on a more deeper personal and relationship level, it was very clunky. And just these 2 days meeting this blonde and blue-eyed American girl, who was probably also of German descent or whatever,
Yes.
it felt again just completely easy and natural to speak with this woman, and everything was just understood, you know, just like that. You know, there was no
Yes.
misunderstanding, no weird silence or anything. You
No
know, it was,
awkward
yeah,
silence.
no awkward silence, no trouble. You could just naturally speak. Also, no weird,
Connect.
like also no weird expectations. You know, this like,
Yes.
oh yeah, is he liking me, or you know, are we going to go
There
to
was no
bed? You know,
tension. No
yeah,
tension, you could
and
say.
also these weird sexual expectations or something that young people have nowadays. You know,
Yes.
am I going to club? Am I going? Am I? You know, will I have sex tonight with some strange? You know, like these
Yes.
weird ideas that people nowadays have and that are put into your brain by the media.
Yes.
There was nothing like this with this woman. It was just a nice girl, and maybe if I had visited her in America, maybe we would be married right but by now, you know.
That's what I
But
was about to ask you. Do you remember where she was from in the United States by chance?
I think she also told me that she was from some place in maybe Arkansas or something. I don't
Oh
know.
wow! So she could have been an Ozarkian lady. The Ozarks are a small mountain range that go through Arkansas and southern Missouri. It's Arkansas is next to Tennessee. It's just due west
Yeah,
of us.
I don't know. I remember she was from somewhere in the mid east, you could say.
Or the Midwest, you could
No,
say,
the mid east, like the mid yeah,
east section
where you
of.
are from. Isn't Tennessee also like east of the Great Plains?
Yes, yes, yes.
So
East,
yeah, so I think she was east, mid east of the Great Plains somewhere there. I don't
yeah. So
remember.
she sounds like she was probably from the upper South, what we would call the upper South.
Yeah, maybe.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, but yeah.
That could have been wife material if you know. That's really cool that you mentioned that too. Like how you had this connection. There was no tension or these
But also,
sexual. Oh,
don't
go ahead.
misunderstand me. Don't misunderstand me. Um, when people say connection nowadays, they think of this mystical kind, this
Yeah,
exaggerated. Oh, we have this deep connection. It's not like that. It's when I speak about connection, I mean something absolutely natural and casual, something that just feels right, just feels
yeah,
normal. It's just like something you had maybe with your playmates in kindergarten, where you had these other people from your race, from your nation, and you never ever felt anything awkward about them. It
yeah,
was just your playmates, and they were all right. There
yeah.
was nothing wrong.
You
There,
could
there was
just you could
there was
just
no
be.
unease. Yeah, exactly. You could just be, and you didn't have any expectations or back thoughts. Like, oh, what's going on? It was
Yes,
just normal. You could say. Yeah.
yeah. There's a question I wanted to ask you real quick from the chat. I'll show it here on the screen. Uh, Will M asks, do they have Amish people in southern Brazil? Did you ever come across any Amish or Mennonite communities?
I know I know there are in South America, but I'm not sure in southern Brazil. But there are Mennonites. Where did I meet Mennonites? I think I met Mennonites in northern Brazil, in Acre, in
Interesting.
like the southern. I traveled along the eastern, no, the western border of Brazil with Bolivia. I traveled upwards towards the Amazonia, and in southern Amazonia somewhere, I know that there were some kind of Mennonites. They were also blonde and blue-eyed, actually.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I was
That's
traveling with this
interesting.
hippie guy, and we were begging for food at the doorsteps, and we met. Normally, people were very open and yeah, have some food, but we met this very reserved, blonde and blue-eyed girl that was really distrustful, and yeah, greetings, yeah,
Yeah.
cool, and we were. She was very distrustful, actually, and then my travel mate, he told me that yeah, this was a Mennonite girl. They are very reserved,
Yes. We have there is a Mennonite community just about it's just about 45 minutes east of where I live currently. And whenever I go fishing in the mountains east of here, up to the river up there, um, I'll see them out on their horse and buggy. I'll be driving down the highway in my vehicle, and then they're just trotting along with their horse and buggy. But they're really nice. They're really reserved people.
uh,
They are, and that's a good thing. I think that is a very good thing, to kind
yeah,
of view outsiders with a dose of skepticism. That doesn't
yeah,
mean that you be cruel to them or mean to them, but you just got to be on guard, I guess you could say.
yeah,
But yeah, this has been a really interesting conversation so far. The chat really enjoy it. The audience. Let's see. Uh, let's see. What else was I going to ask you? Real quickly. Uh, let's see. You kind of consider yourself to be, I guess, a pagan, you could say, or you just follow the native European
no,
heritage
I
belief.
I consider myself totally a pagan.
Yes.
Although this thing is, yeah, the word obviously is loaded with all kinds of associations, which are mostly
Yes.
bullshit, of course. But I have some interesting, maybe some interesting perspective on this, because in Eastern Germany we are gifted and cursed in a way, because we grew up in this communist thing, like in up until I was 7 years old, there was still communism in Eastern Germany, and in this part, like 40% of all people, or even more, are atheists. Because my parents were brought up completely atheists. Like any kind of church or religion was shunned in Eastern Germany, which is very different to, for example, Southern Germany, which is very Catholic, or Eastern or Western Germany, Northwest, which is very evangelical. And so on the one hand, it's bad because all the family values were also scrapped in Eastern Germany, basically. But at least we were basically like a blank paper, like our
Yeah.
minds as kids were blank papers. We were not indoctrinated with church stuff. And it is funny because later in school, um, we sometimes visited these church groups when they had a party, like sometimes at these church groups. Yeah, that we were like kids, in school. And like, there's a party there. It's in the church place there. Yeah, let's go there. Why not? And but I noticed always on these church parties that I was much more, you could say, pious, than these church people. But I didn't believe,
Interesting.
at all in their bullshit. I found it all ridiculous. But this is what I consider a good thing about this communist upbringing, that we were like, yeah, not indoctrinated into this church stuff. And I met when I was, for example, in South Africa, I met this blonde and blue-eyed girl. For example, she was totally into church,
Yeah.
and we also had like a little relationship, and but I knew I cannot continue this because she most definitely wants her children to be baptized and go to church, and I most definitely don't want this to happen. And I realized we can't be together. It's
Yeah.
impossible. But I think this non-religious upbringing gave me a good basis for being a pagan, basically, because I was always very interested in fairy tales and in history, in ancient
Yes.
history, in
Yes.
nature, and I had all these natural instincts towards nature and heritage and fairy tales and tales, fantasy. Basically, I loved Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. It was like completely part of my identity as a child. This Lord of the Rings, for example, and yeah, and it set me on this path to investigating this more, and I also wanted to greet this Thor Magni, who's also watching. I think he
Yes.
said something earlier, and I also really liked, for example, his perspectives on the whole paganism thing, and I also liked a lot of Varg's perspective on these things, and I come to realize more and more how our paganism is just a misunderstood science, basically. That it's just a very reasonable and scientific worldview, basically, which has, yeah, been distorted into this yeah, comic book stuff. Basically, I
Oh,
could
yeah,
totally
in the
agree
mainstream.
with I totally agree with Varg on this point, and also with Thor Magni, who also interprets some of the stuff in a very reasonable way.
Yes. Yes. I know.
May,
I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, maybe I can give an example for this, which I sometimes bring up. In Germany, I noticed in the countryside, old barn houses, barns basically, are always built with the door towards the summer solstice setting, and the archaeologist types, or like the scientific types, they will always say, yeah, the the orientation of the house towards the sun, that's like this big religious mystical thing because they worship the sun and all this stuff. But when I was in Bavaria working there, and we were staying at this farm, the the old man living there just told us, yeah, in former times the farmhouses were built towards the sun because in summer you have the most of the work. You bring in all the crops, you harvest, you make hay, you make
Yes.
straw, and you work until late, and you have an open barn door, and the sun is setting in this direction and will shine into the
It gives
open
you
barn
light.
door
It will give
and
you
gives you
light.
light to be able to work until night. And this is just
Interesting.
the simple fucking reason why they say it's like a sun worship. They orient their house towards the sunset. Yeah, of course, because in summer they want to have most light inside their house to be working, to be weaving and knitting and all the stuff, because they're most active in summer. And yeah, that's just like simple details like that. And I believe, or I suppose that most of this, what they call superstition, or what they call pagan beliefs, in demons or in spirits. Actually, most of this will probably have a very reasonable and logical explanation.
Yes, yes, that's my opinions too. I hear a lot of critics. They call Varg a sort of atheistic, sort of pagan. I don't necessarily see it as this myself. I know there's a huge debate. I mean, even in these online communities between people that would follow, I guess, Survive the Jive, and then people that follow Varg, I guess you could say. Actually, Varg was a pretty big inspiration for me starting this channel. Actually, him and Vegard Solheim,
Mm.
and then I discovered you and Apollonian Germ, and yeah, it's interesting. I finally remembered the last question I was going to ask you, and I'll
Hmm.
go ahead and fire it off.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle or the biggest problem facing the German people at large?
Yeah, I can answer this question completely clearly because I've been to Britain, to England, I've been to South Africa, and I've basically also been to South America where there are also white people. And it was most stunning in South Africa when I realized that white people all over the world have the exact same problem, that they're basically exactly the same, and they suffer from the same disease, like, which is, and I can maybe give an example to that. If you see a German woman somewhere in Germany who is above 35 or something, or maybe into the 40s, she will have short and most probably dyed hair, and also some kind of hair style.
Yeah.
And this sums up everything. And this woman will most likely be completely unattractive and boring, just a used up woman. And this type of woman is basically, there's almost no exception to this in Germany. And I saw this type of woman also in every other part of the world where there are white people. And it kind of sums up this, because if you compare this to other cultures like the Arab culture, blacks, whatever, they preserve their femininity over the years. They stay a woman. They have long hair. They look feminine. They wear feminine clothes. They don't so quickly look so worn up and just empty. They
Yes.
still preserve their feminine pride, and you don't see this in most white women. Or the other route is, like, for example, in this type of woman works at the counter somewhere, maybe in the post office or something. But you see this other type of women who become totally esoteric, like, they do have long hair, but they are this total esoteric life advice hippie type who meditates all the time, does yoga, and is crazy in a completely different level. And what you don't see in most white countries, or in all white countries, is basically completely normal people, just normal natural people. You can see, for example, among the migrants, I see a lot of natural people who are, maybe I don't have to like them, maybe they're assholes or whatever, but they're just they're just natural, they don't they're just not crazy,
Yes.
and I don't know, and the I think the problem for the white people is they just have to stop thinking about all these stupid concepts, and just be humans,
Yeah.
multiply and live, and try to get as much power as possible, like everybody else, on the planet,
Yes.
basically, like every animal, like every insect
To
and
survive, you
plant
could
and
say.
everything, yeah, just it sounds like, for example, for most white people, this sounds absolutely outrageous. How can you promote, basically living for power or so? But I mean, power is not just having money or so. Power is just feeling physically and spiritually and emotionally well, and move ahead, have a
Yes.
good life, and have
To
have
thrive.
have happy children, yeah, just to thrive, and
Yes.
forget about all these immense avalanche of ideas and concepts that they think about. It's mostly worthless. Just
It is. It is.
just continue, live your life, and become better at your job, and I don't know, be independent. I mean, it's hard, but of course the problem is that the white race is bombarded by this onslaught of propaganda.
Yes.
This is why also you can see, for example, I saw these black people in Britain, this black woman, which was completely worn out. You could see, yeah, this woman is under this spell. She's under the influence of this type of propaganda. She ingested this stuff. Now she becomes a zombie as well. But most blacks
Exactly.
are I think most blacks or other races are immune to this, because
They are
it's not
geared to them.
specifically designed towards them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our race, and this is a point right here I'd like to make. While we may have, on average, higher IQ, this also, unfortunately, it's like the people that produce this sort of anti-white propaganda, they've really got it dialed in extremely well.
Yeah.
And they know that you could say we are more self-aware to a degree. Therefore, we are, it is easier for us to conceptualize, I guess, the other race's struggles and they use this against us.
Yeah.
They use a part of our nature against us, you could
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Sure. They studied us meticulously, basically.
Yes, they have,
Yeah.
and they have studied this for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Bruno Lasker by chance? He was a
Mm,
Jewish man. Um,
maybe no, not really.
he's over here in America. A lot of the programming, a lot of the critical race theory stuff that they are trying to pump into the youth here in this country, a lot of this stuff was formulated back in the 1910s, the 1920s, and Bruno
Mm.
Lasker was a guy that spearheaded a lot of this stuff. Anyways, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I remember this name Lasker because there's a German woman, Else Lasker Schüler, which sounds really Jewish as well now as I think about it. And she has like some street names here, and I remember we had something about her in school. Maybe she is related to this guy. I don't know.
And the last name Lasker, I think I'm reminded of the Jewish world chess champion from, I believe it was back in the late 1800s. Don't hold me to that, but his name was Emanuel Lasker. He
Yeah.
was a Jewish world chess champion, one of the
Mm,
best players in the world there for a little
mm,
while. If you would give me just about 30 seconds, I've got to run over here and let my dog out real quick.
hmm.
I will be right back, and I guess we'll get into talking about the Deutschland perspective, if that's all right
Yeah,
with you.
sure.
All right,
Hmm.
give me just 30 seconds. I'll be back, guys.
Yeah, maybe I can bring us to the point a little bit more. That I think our problem is to just be normal people and live. It's not really that this white struggle or rebellion against the state or whatever. I don't know. It's not so extreme, basically. Like we have to do the first step first. Just be ourselves and live our culture again. And I mean, most white people don't even know what their culture is. Most white people in Germany, most Germans don't think they have a culture. It's a sad thing. They see all these migrants as colorful people with this beautiful identities and dances and heritage, and they think they don't have any of that. So
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. My smaller dog was wanting to go out there and play with my hound in the backyard. He was scratching at the door.
yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it just elaborated on this a little bit more, because I think we also have to uh, basically live our culture again. For example, have our own clothes, do our dances and
yes.
stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean that's one thing I like about Apollonian Germ is how he sells these wool
Can you give me a
sweaters.
second? I also have to have to go out now
No,
for 30
that's
seconds.
that's fine. That's fine.
Okay,
Take your
be right
break.
back.
All right. Hey, I want to thank everybody that's here. Everybody in the audience. I'm glad glad y'all could make it today. I usually do my streams later on in the evening here in Eastern time, but my friend here is in Europe and got an early stream in today. I want to thank y'all for stopping by. Hey, how you doing, Jerry Robbins? How you doing? JD says we don't need exotic spices to cook. That's true, man. Eating your heritage cuisine is a very important thing, and that's something interesting that you bring up, JD. Is that a lot of people, a lot of these globalist zombies, you could call them leftists, liberals, or whatever. They're like, oh, I want authentic Afghan cuisine, dude. You don't fucking need an authentic Afghan to come and cook dinner. You can get a recipe. It goes for any of these, racial invaders, you could say. Anyways, let me scroll up to the chat here. There was something interesting I wanted to look at for just a second. Urban Einsiedler. Excuse me. You'll have to forgive me, members of the German audience. I'm a hillbilly after all, and I'm terrible at pronouncing names and words, unfortunately. But he brings up the point here that because life has become too easy for most people, and that's correct.
Okay.
I agree. Okay, you back again, sir?
Yeah. Thanks for waiting.
Awesome. Oh, no problem. I was just reading the chat and thanking the audience for showing up. Layler 1975. I actually bought this from Apollonian Germ. It's a Norwegian wool sweater. Wool supremacy all the way.
Yeah, wool. Yeah, I also have wool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wool
I've got some.
king.
Oh, it's outstanding, man. I know. It was a couple of days before Christmas. I don't know what this would translate to in Celsius, but it got down to 7 degrees in the daytime down in northwest Georgia where I work. We had an Arctic front spearhead itself very far south, and I know I had to work that day, unfortunately, but I had me some wool socks on, wool sweater on under my work clothes. I was pretty comfortable, outstandingly comfortable. Anyways, so now I guess. Heck, I can't believe we've already been going for 50 minutes, but
Oh man. How long have you planned for the stream to go?
it's just, however, I don't want to hold you up too long.
No, I have time. For such things, and I'm really interested in the topic at hand. So
yes.
I'm open end basically.
I was about to say I usually try to stream for 2 hours, so maybe
Yeah, sure.
another
Let's do it.
70 minutes.
Mhm.
I'm wanting to get the Deutschland perspective. from a native about some of the things that are going on in his country. Um, and it was a big topic in the news, but very briefly, it seems like,
Hmm.
was the recent attempted potential coup d'etat, the far right coup d'etat that
Yeah.
the authorities sniffed out in your
Yeah.
country.
Mhm.
I can't find, all I found on it was mainstream news sources, and there's, it's mainstream bullshit. I don't really believe it. I don't know what to believe because I'm an American and I'm over here and I don't know what's going on. So if you would explain to us what's your perspective of this coup d'etat or whatever it was, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on it
Yeah. So this is actually a big topic because it's completely neglected
in these circles?
in the basically dissident right circles about around the world, basically. And I just noticed that yeah, nobody in the English speaking spheres talks about Reichsbürger. And you earlier said that there's not a lot of news coverage about Germany in your country, but to be honest, there's not a lot of news coverage about Germany in Germany, you know,
Oh wow.
because this Reichsbürger type is not really uh, reported. It's called Totschweigen, to silence to death. We say in Germany. When they don't, when they want something to not get traction, they just don't report about it at all. And I noticed this with a lot of so-called right-wing people, streamers, and public people in Germany who are probably just assets of the secret service, because they get traction, they are mentioned in the newspapers and all this stuff. And mostly, when you are really against the system, they don't give you any coverage at all. And with the Riceburger stuff, it's very interesting because they did give it coverage, and I think the media invented the term Reichsbürger, and they started this propaganda a couple of years ago when there was a shooting actually in the town of where I used to live for most of my life. Um, Close to there was this episode. There was this Reichsbürger who was invaded by the police, and he shot one of the policemen, not to death, but he wounded him, I guess. And later there was this controversy if he had actually fired this gun or not. This was like the big court case was, did he fire the gun or not? Did the policeman shot himself, or did another policeman shot him by accident? Whatever. Did he even have a gun? There was this whole
Yeah.
story, and the whole story revolved around, oh, are Reichsbürger um, crazy and dangerous terrorists who are hoarding weapons and want to overthrow the state? And this is how this whole stuff started. And
When did this
yeah,
happen again, if you don't mind me
I
asking?
think this was like also must have been 5 years ago,
Oh, okay, okay. A few
or
years
even
back.
even 6 or 7 years ago. It's a little bit older. And when they started this stuff, and when I looked into the Reichsbürger movement, I noticed that this is much older. That this has a long history. It goes back even into the 90s, I think. And
Yeah.
what I found out is that I mean, there's more and more coverage now in the newspapers about Reichsbürger, but it's always about this terrorist type of stuff, like this. They have weapons, and do we have to be concerned? Are they dangerous? Um, but what I noticed is that the Reichsbürger are actually a completely like, they're not about hoarding weapons. They're actually about investigating the legal system and investigating the law in Germany. And I think they are onto something because of this negative coverage and because of the invention of the Reichsbürger meme and the Reichsbürger term.
Yes.
This invention of this terrorist group by the media. But most of the Reichsbürger types that I talked to, they believe that Germany will collapse anyway, so they have absolutely no reason to overthrow the government because they see that the government is basically overthrowing itself. And what most Reichsbürger types that I talked to are focusing on is actually establishing administrative bodies and administrative systems ahead of time to be used when Germany collapses. And you could say that Reichsbürger, there are many in Germany now, but not many, not many in the sense that there's like millions of people, but there are many groups. There are many people. Like, you could imagine this like this: there's like a guy in a village, and he says, "Yeah, my village is a sovereign entity, and
Yeah.
I declare my independence right here," because and this is what is interesting. Like, this is where it all starts. The Reichsbürger movement starts with the fact that we are still using Reichs law. Like, all our laws are basically the laws of 1871 onwards. Like our
During the German Empire, I suppose,
like
correct?
we are even using a lot of laws from the Nazi area that are still in place.
Yeah.
And most of the other laws, like the penal law, the penal code, and all the stuff, it's all from the German Empire. And and there are even court rulings. There are plenty of court rulings that upon some point in some court case, the question came up, what's with the German Empire? Is it still there or not? And most of these court cases, they ruled no, for the sake of this matter that we have here, the German Empire still exists. It is just not able to act because it has no administrative bodies. And then they say, like, yeah, but the BRD, the Federal Republic of Germany, what's that? Yeah, it's identical with the Reich. It doesn't have all the territories, but this is where the weird stuff starts. Like what does it mean? What does it mean that the German Reich still exists? And
Yeah.
and the conclusion for the Reichsbürger, basically, what their ideology is that the German Empire exists, and the BRD is basically just an administrative company, founded, like a business founded by the US, basically by the occupiers. They basically just registered this company to administer the German territory, but it's not a state. This is what they think, and the what the actual threat that the Reichsbürger pose is their stance on the whole legal system, which basically invalidates it by saying, well, I am a German, I'm under the law of the German Empire. You are a company and you are under the commerce law. You are in international waters and you are under the law of a ship. You are basically on a ship, and you are
Yes.
in your legal circle is commerce. You're on the commercial law. And I can maybe give an example what the Reichsbürger, how they confront the authorities. They say, well, you sent me this letter, for example, taxes. You sent me this letter and you want taxes from me, but you don't have the right to
To
call
charge me.
taxes. You don't have.
To charge you the taxes.
Yeah,
They
you
don't
you don't
have the
have the right to.
authority.
You don't have the authority to charge taxes. And here's another point that they raise. These tax letters that you get, they're never signed, and there's always the wording which says this is a preliminary tax title. Why is it preliminary? And they say, well,
Yeah.
it's preliminary because they don't have the right. They just assume they have the right. This is what the Reichsbürger think. I don't know if this is 100% correct. I can just explain what their reasoning is. They say that your tax paper is preliminary because they don't have the right to take taxes. And once you pay the taxes, you signed a contract, because in the commerce law, there is this thing that they call conclusive action or something like that, like a conclusively, how do they call that? Basically, to sign to make a contract with a person, you don't have to sign the contract. It's enough that you act like you signed the contract. For example,
Yeah.
if I send you a bill over $100 because I repaired your window, and you pay this bill, you know, and we then enter to a legal case, and you say, well, you never repaired my window, and I say, no, but you paid the bill, so whatever, like we have
Yeah.
a contract. Or maybe I can still come and repair your window to fulfill my part of the contract,
Yeah. To
because
feel.
you fulfilled your part of the contract. And for the judge in the court, he says, yeah, you have a contract because you acted like you had a contract, you
Yeah.
know. So this is what Reichsbürger think, how the relationship. Oh man.
Oh, it's okay. If you need to
So
check on.
so the That's all right. So the Reichsbürger think that the relationship between authority and subject in Germany works like this, like this type of contract where, because you signed that, because you paid that fine, that bill, you accepted the contract, and this is their basically their leash on you, it's all on
Yes.
contractual basis. And now the Reichsbürger, they start to say, no, I don't pay this stuff because I don't accept your contract. And I don't know how it is in your country, but a couple of years ago, the authorities started to send letters and notices and bills and fines, but they always send letters, and it says, this letter is not signed, but it is valid without signature. It is electronically created and is valid without signature. Do you ever get papers like this in your country?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I would imagine so. Yeah. My friend Besought here, he says that there's people doing the same thing here. I would imagine, yeah,
Yeah.
there
So,
is
so,
something
so yeah,
similar
and
here.
and and these Reichsbürger types, they say, well, there is a law in Germany that says that every document has to be written, signed, and
Yes.
not only signed, not like signed with this, little scratch,
Cursive,
but
yeah.
yeah, but actually signed with your prename and your name,
Yes.
name and surname, signed by hand. And if it's not signed, it's not legally binding, So
Yes.
what the Reichsbürger types do is that they send this back. They said, yo, I got this anonymous letter here, and I'm sending it back. You know, bye
Yeah.
bye. So, and there are now many many people doing this kind of stuff. And when they get in contact with the police, they say, well, who are you? You are a security company.
Yes.
Where is your authority? Please prove to me that you have authoritative
Authority.
rights. Because their reasoning is that if these companies, they say, our companies, if they do anything wrong, the real authority is the occupation force. The real
Yes.
authority is the Soviet Union or Russia, in Eastern Germany, and in Western Germany, it's France, Britain, or United States, depending on
Yes.
which occupation zone you live. And this is the next thing they say. They say, my authority is United States, not you. You are just a company, and you don't
Yeah.
have any power over me. And if I have any problem, I report you to the UN, to the United States, or whatever. And this is where they actually start getting these authorities, so-called authorities, into trouble, because they themselves have a lot of personnel issues, and these people become younger and younger, and the workload becomes bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
and they sometimes don't have any clue what they are themselves talking about,
Yeah.
and they become really, "Phew, what are we doing with these people? How can we argue?" And yeah, it's a huge topic, and it revolves all around the legal system, and it has absolutely nothing to do with terrorism or weapons or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's
You know.
basically fighting the system with paper and pen,
Yeah.
and it seems to be working in some cases. There, like as I said, there are many many groups, and they do speeches. You can go to various meetings of people like that. And I went to a group that say they even claim that they are in contact with Russia. We're in Eastern Germany here, and I met a group. They say, yeah, we have a representative in Moscow, you know,
Yeah.
and we have contact with the Duma, and they claim that if the police comes to their place to treat them like a terrorist, they pull out the diplomatic correspondence with Russia and
Oh,
say,
wow.
"Go fuck off." If
Yeah.
you know, and there are several cases now where the police is calling the Interior Ministry, asking, what to do. There's a guy claiming they are an independent country. How do I deal with this kind of situation? And
Yeah.
they are getting in real trouble. And I think since the war in Ukraine started, it's getting even hotter, because imagine you are now in this very shaky situation, like, oh, the energy crisis, we don't have any energy, we have no gas, Germany is on very thin ice right now, basically, economically. And there comes a group that says, well, we are an independent community, you don't have legislative rights over us, if you do anything against us, our protective power is Russia. It's the Russian Federation. So if you attack us, you attack them. We're basically allied with Russia. So,
Wow.
and I think this might actually be true. This might work, because how are you going to know if you are a police officer? Oh man, how am I going to know?
How do you handle something like
Yeah,
that? That's not your everyday.
Because we are now talking about war with Russia.
Yeah.
If I go to this little village there with this handful of guys who say, well, we are an independent German municipality recognized by Russia and with diplomatic ties to the Russian Federation, I mean, how do you handle that?
Yeah.
And there's more and more evidence that the state has a real problem with that. And one of the things they did this year, actually, they did several things. Last year, they started to create a new penal code, a new penal law, which prohibits the delegitimization of the state. Before that, it was not a crime. Now it is a crime punishable by law if you say this state is not legitimate.
Wow. So that means they're afraid, you could say.
Exactly. They're
trying
afraid
to
of
get
that.
ahead.
And then, the next thing, what they did, what you also have no coverage about, I suppose, is this year in October, with the 1st of October, they created a new military body, which they call the Territorial Command.
Really?
What do you suppose? What do you guess this is?
It sounds like a sort of a group that would be used against the German citizen, you could say.
Exactly, because by law, because of our dictatorial past, because of our tyrannical past, the Bundeswehr cannot be used inside our country. It can only be used outside to defend, but it cannot be used against the own citizens. This is forbidden by law. But they created a new territorial command specifically for use inside of Germany.
Wow.
A new unit, basically.
Wow.
A new detachment of military. And you can guess, well, are they doing that to use against migrant clans or against whatever, against
the native German population?
Insurgents. I think they are counting with insurgents now inside of Germany.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting, like the whole topic is huge and interesting, and there are millions of different vectors, different approaches, like all these types that I met or I talked to or I saw on the internet. They all have a little bit of a different approach, and they claim, well, for example, this is another interesting example. You can find several official media reports about the fact that our election system is invalid, like our law of election. I think you have a similar thing in the United States now. There's a debate that your election system needs to be overhauled for a huge sum of money.
Yes.
And several years ago, the same happened in Germany, where they said, well, we noticed during this election that basically the election law is legally not valid anymore. It's outdated and it legally doesn't function. We need to overhaul that. But they never overhauled it. And one of the flaws in the law is that your passport, I don't know if you can still follow me or if this is all too much.
No, I think
Yeah.
I'm
So
up to speed.
one other interesting detail about this whole topic is that if you have a German passport, you are not. It doesn't mean that you can vote, because you can look this up. It's even on Wikipedia. Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you there?
So
Okay.
this was even on Wikipedia, where it says that if you have a German passport, this just means that it is assumed that you are German, but this is not proof that you are German. Your person.
Yeah,
It's also called Personalausweis, which is our identity card, and it all says that this doesn't mean that you are German. It just assumes you're German and gives you an identity, like a number.
interesting.
But
Yeah,
there's actually a process that you can go through, which is based on a law from 1913, which
yeah,
proves that you are German. And if you go through this process, you have to go to the authorities and say, here's my heritage, this is my grandfather, it's my great grandfather, this is his birth certificate, they were all Germans even before 1913. And only if you can prove, I think the most recent version is, if your ancestors were Germans in 1937, then you are a real German. And then you get something they call a yellow paper, which
yeah,
is just because it's a yellow paper, and it says Staatsbürgerschaftsausweis. It says citizen certificate or something like that, citizen permit. And this actually proves that you are German. And only, but it says in our Grundgesetz, in our basically constitution, it says that only a German can vote,
yes,
But in the election booth, they never ask you for the yellow paper. They never ask you for the proof that you are German. They
yeah.
just ask you for your passport,
Passport or ID,
yeah, or
the
ID,
that number you
exactly.
mentioned.
But
Yeah,
this doesn't
okay.
prove that this doesn't prove that you are German, and
Yeah,
therefore, for this fact alone, all of our elections are invalid.
yeah,
All, and if I go to court, for example, if the authorities send me tax letter, you have to pay $1,000 tax, €1,000. Well, I say no, you're not the authority. Then I go to court and I say, why are they not the authority? Because I didn't vote for them, because voting is illegal, because the
it's
voting,
illegitimate. It's
it's all
illegitimate.
it's all legit. And I probably would win this case, because in the end, this is just the fact. It's undeniable. The all the voting is illegitimate, and there are lots of stuff like that. And the whole legal system is like we call it Schweizer Käse, like a cheese, a Swiss cheese with all the
Yes.
holes in
Hold
it.
it.
It's
Yes.
huge. For example, people say, no, Germany is a sovereign country, we are not occupied. But I can point to you to the Grundgesetz, which is our constitution, and there is a paragraph that says the Bund, the federation pays the costs of occupation. It's still in our law that Germany has to pay the occupation costs, and you ask yourself, well, if we are not occupied, why do we have to pay the occupation costs, And there's millions of stuff like that. I mean, I think it's going to get a little bit tiring, but if you and the audience want to know more of these details, I can provide you with more, but I don't know if you can follow still.
Oh, I mean, if as long as you want to talk about it, that's fine. You've done a
Or
very
maybe you have some questions in between. I don't know.
I was going to say, you've done a very great job of laying this out. I know a couple of my American friends in this chat are they're interested in this. I was going to say, if you wanted a quick break, just for a second, I was going to read that article I'd mentioned to you
Yeah,
earlier. It just
sure.
that'll give you a
Yeah.
minute, because I know
Mhm.
you've been explaining, I think, for about the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Give you
Let's
give you
yeah.
a little rest.
Yeah, good.
Let me pull it up here. All right, this is me and Ratatoskr were talking about whether or not Germany is still an occupied country. And myself, I believe they are, because I mean the troop numbers. I looked up the troop numbers over the last 20 years in the German nation, and it's a lot of other things, just cultural things, the media, all these things. But I found this article. It's an interesting article, and it's from a website, an obscure website called Hellenic News of America. It's some like Greek American website, but this is an opinion piece in it by a guy named Christopher Bolin. Bolin, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. The title is Germany Still Occupied by U.S. After 58 Years. So this was in 2003 or 2004 when this article was written.
Yeah.
All right, here's what he says. The Allied occupation of Germany began 58 years ago this month, and in the eyes of many Germans has not yet ended. Foreign armies are still based on German soil, and Europe's largest and most prosperous democracy still lacks a constitution and a peace treaty putting a formal end to the Second World War. For Germany, yes. For Germany, World War II, like the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, like I said, you have to remember this was written almost 20 years ago, lacks formal legal closure because a peace treaty was never signed between the Allies and Germany. The stated goal of the Anglo-American forces in Iraq, or Iraq, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Over here in Appalachia, we call it Iraq. But anyway, is to liberate the Iraqi people and establish democracy. However, if the U.S. and British occupation of Iraq follows the pattern set by the Allied occupation of Germany, a sovereign democracy in Iraq is not likely to appear in the future. Although President George W. Bush's much ballyhooed victory speech from the deck of an aircraft carrier was meant to look like the end of the Iraq conflict, it was not. And if the German model is repeated in Iraq, there may never be a formal end to the war in Iraq. While the partly reunified German nation is considered a modern European democracy, it has no constitution other than the temporary basic law, which is called the Grundgesetz.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The basic law.
Yes. Originally written in 1948 under the guidance of the U.S. military occupation forces and originally meant only to apply to the western parts of Germany under U.S. control. One of the basic law's final articles says it is to be replaced when Germany obtains a constitution.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Article 23 defining the legal jurisdiction of the basic law was removed at the request of former Secretary of State James Baker at a Paris conference of the Allied powers and the two former German states on July the 17th, 1990. The two German states were legally abolished at this conference, and their foreign ministers were only informed of the changes after it had been done. As a result, these changes, the basic law does not legally apply to the reunified German state, according to some legal experts. In any case, the basic law is incomplete and contradictory, therefore cannot serve as a proper constitution. For example, Article 139 states that legal provisions concerning Nazism and German militarism are not affected by the basic law. This article indicates that the numerous Allied occupation laws and proclamations remain in effect in spite of the basic law. Let's see here. Article 139 is a little contradictory. Christian Thomaschat said. He is a professor of German constitutional law at Berlin's Humboldt University, told the American Free Press. Despite the obvious problems with the temporary basic law, which has never been ratified by a vote of the people, Thomaschat says it is a valid German constitution in his opinion. The Grundgesetz is the constitution. It just has a different name, he said. There is no movement in Germany towards creating a constitution, according to Thomaschat, who says a proper constitution. Oh, what was you going to say? Do you have something?
Yeah, which this professor says, right? There's no movement of, which is a lie. There's lots of
there is. Yes. Yes. I wonder if these movements were as pronounced back then. Like I said, I think this article was in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, There is no movement in Germany towards creating a constitution, according to Thomas Schatt, who says a proper constitution is not as important as the unemployment problem. Jobs are now more important than a constitution, Thomas Schatt told AFP.
Of course.
Yes, of course, the economy, you know.
Yeah.
The fact that the flawed and temporary basic law serves as Germany's de facto constitution is unacceptable to Wolfgang Gerhard Gunther Ebel, Germany's provisional Reichskanzler, I believe is how you say that.
Yeah, this was one of these people who claimed to be a provisional Reichskanzler, yeah, a chancellor
Oh,
of the
nice.
Reich.
Ebel heads the provisional government that claims to be the legal successor to the Second German Reich, which was replaced by Adolf Hitler's illegal Third Reich, which was 1933 to 45. Germany rests on the Second Reich and on the Constitution of the Weimar Republic created on August 11th, 1919, Ebel said. In 1987, the Allies requested that Ebel submit a copy of the 1919 original Weimar Constitution of the German Reich, which he did. This is the only legal constitution for Germany, according to Ebel, until a peace treaty is signed. The Allies recognized the legal boundaries of the German Reich from December 31st, 1937. These borders included the occupied German lands of East Prussia, Pomerania, and Silesia, the final status of which was meant to be determined in a peace settlement. The peace settlement never happened. The so-called final settlement of September the 12th, 1990, called for the existing border between Poland and Germany to be confirmed and for Germany to relinquish any territorial claims in the future. The status of East Prussia and the capital city of Königsberg, which was occupied and renamed by the Soviet Union in 1945, is not mentioned in the final settlement. According to the provisional government, the final settlement is not valid because it was negotiated and signed by the foreign ministers of the two German states, the BRD and the DDR, both of which legally ceased to exist after the Paris Conference of July 17, 1990. The German government is illegal, Ebel told the American Free Press, and what they do has no basis in law. As to how it could be that the German people are unaware of this situation, Ebel said, the German media is still under the control of the Allies. The entire media is controlled.
Yep.
The Second World War has not ended because a peace treaty was not signed between Germany and the Allies, Ebel says. The peace contract is the most important thing that we need and want because there is no formal peace treaty between Germany and the Allies headed by the United States. German sovereignty is compromised. Until we have a peace treaty, Germany is only a colony of the United States, John Kornblum of the U.S. State Department told Ebel on October the 20th, 1985. Kornblum is now employed by Lazar Bank in Berlin, according to Ebel. Some 80,000 U.S. military personnel are permanently based in Germany, and Britain also continues to base troops and military equipment in the Western German zone they formerly occupied. It is not uncommon to see British tanks on the streets of the area near Munster in Westphalia. U.S. occupation laws handed down by the Supreme Headquarter Allied Expeditionary Force are still in effect, Ebel said. The first law, Proclamation Number 1, making General Dwight D. Eisenhower supreme authority in the areas under the U.S. control, was signed on February the 13th, 1944. Allied authorities informed Ebel that these SHAEF laws will remain in effect for 60 years from the date of signing and apply to all of Europe. Let's see here. There's a few more paragraphs. Let me see if there's anything else to glean here. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it right there.
Yeah, it's a nice stuff. I mean, this sums it up a little. It gives a good overview of the topic. Actually, what you just read. It's
yeah. I think I just stumbled across that article last night.
I was going to add something. What was it? Yeah, you know, there's this question, legally, you can argue the whole day about, like, is Germany legally still occupied, or are the treaties signed? Is this like a quasi peace treaty, or is this like is the Grundgesetz a quasi constitution? And you can, on the question if Germany is a colony of the United States, for me always comes this quote, or the saying, this American or this English saying to mind. If it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
It is.
And this is the thing with the German colony question. Germany acts totally and completely like a vassal of Great Britain and the United States. 100%. There's absolutely no arguing against that. Like, they do everything that America wants. And you can also see this with the, like, we are in very, very troubled waters right now. I mean, imagine they just blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, which is like
Yes.
the main energy supply of one of the biggest industrial nations in the world,
The biggest in
industrial
Europe.
economies, the biggest in
Yes.
Europe. And they just blew this up. And this is like basically an act of war. And nothing, like, there's nothing. The chancellor, well, I don't know who done it, whatever, like, what?
Yeah.
If Germany was sovereign, the number one priority would be to find the culprit and demand consequences. Like,
Yes.
what? Britain blew up the pipeline? That's an act of war. Either you pay this pipeline now, and all the losses that come from losing this energy, which is like billions and trillions of money, that they could never pay it. It would basically mean war between Germany and Britain. At least it would mean that any treaties between Germany and Great Britain are cancelled. There would be
Yes.
diplomatic consequences, but nothing. And why is there no
Nothing.
consequence? Because we are just a vassal state.
Yes.
And you could, I saw these compilations about, like, Joe Biden and other American officials, um, who said years ago that there will be no Nord Stream pipeline. When the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was still in building, the Americans always said, this will not happen. We will
Yeah.
stop this from being in place. We will stop it. And finally they stopped it. And there's a lot of evidence pointing to Britain or the United States being the culprits of this
Oh,
whole thing.
yes. Yes.
And so this is more than obvious that we just follow the tune, and the piper is America. And here is another thing that came to my mind, displaying how, because you were talking about the Polish occupied regions of Pomerania, Silesia, which actually I mean, for me, it's even more hot, this topic, because my grandparents are from there. I'm the child of expulsed people. I have no homeland, so to say. My homeland is occupied.
Yeah.
It's not anyone's country that we are talking about. We're talking about my ancestral homelands, which were occupied by Poland. And you know why this is so extremely, I don't know how to say it in English, spicy or dangerous or hot, this whole topic?
Volatile. Volatile.
Volatile. This is so
Yes.
extremely volatile right now, because you know what? There are more and more signs that Ukraine is going to lose this war, and Ukraine will be partitioned between Russia, Romania, and Poland. Because up until 1945, the three most western provinces of Ukraine were Polish provinces.
Oh, okay.
And, in contrary to Germany, Poland is a very nationalistic country. And they are already talking about the territories that the Soviet Union annexed from Poland in 1945. And you know what the Soviets told the Polish when they annexed their eastern provinces?
What's that?
They
What is
told
it?
them, well, we're going to take your eastern provinces, but you can just move west. You take the same territory in the west. These three provinces, Pomerania, Silesia, and West Prussia, you take these provinces for the ones that we stole from you in the east. You know what happens when the Polish now invade Ukraine and take the eastern provinces? You know which argument falls away?
The
You know,
original. What's that?
yes, up till now, they can always say, well, we occupy the eastern German provinces because the Soviet Union took our eastern provinces. You know, it's just
Yeah.
that was the deal. Now, if they take back their eastern provinces, they have no pretext anymore for occupying our, you know, they would basically morally corrupt themselves because they would say, well, this land belonged to us before 1945. That's why we take it in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
so the German, and then they said, and if the Germans now come and say, well, we're going to take our provinces back, you know, and the Polish say, no, that's Polish provinces. And we're going to say, well, before 1945, it was German provinces. So what? Yeah, but that's not possible. You know, what, you did it as well in Ukraine. So what's going on, you know? You see how meaningful all of this is. How
Yes.
like it I think the whole Ukraine war is so complex and so deep, and what can happen right now is wild. You know, it's
Yeah.
wild. What can
There's a
happen in
lot.
2023 is extremely wild. Anything can happen. And I don't know if you followed it, but Medvedev, the Russian, I don't know if he's prime minister or something, he made some predictions for 2023. Did you read them?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, and he, for example, the Russian prime minister, he said it themselves. He said in 2023, Ukraine will be destroyed. It will be partitioned. The eastern parts will belong to Russia. Some parts in the south will belong to Romania, and the western parts will belong to Poland. And I think, yeah, this could very, very well happen. And then
Yeah.
it's a new game, and I mean everything changes. And I don't know.
It's
It's just huge
fascinating.
what's happening. It's
It's
huge with what's happening right now. I mean,
oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of potential for great upheaval, and it's very questionable. You know, what will Germany do, and what will, I mean, also you could argue how strong is the United States still? You know, I mean, is it also like just a paper tiger? Is it just all propaganda and media bullshit? I mean, how much power do they still have? Or are they crumbling as well? I
It's
mean,
crumbling, I believe.
it
Absolutely.
seems a lot of things will change this year, you know. And yeah, I don't know. I got a little bit off the rails,
Oh
probably.
no,
You know.
that's perfect. It was extremely relevant to what we were talking about. Um, I just got a few statistics here. I was wanting to just quickly read off to add to the conversation.
Yeah.
I believe in that article that I read a second ago. It was from back in 2003.
Hmm.
It said back then that there was 80,000 U.S. troops in
Yes.
Germany.
Yeah.
That number has failed. It's at this moment there is roughly 35,000 troops in Germany.
Hmm.
The United States used to possess 40 military bases in Germany. Most of them, of course, were in Western Germany.
All of them were in Western
Yes,
Germany. They don't have
all of them
any. They
in
don't have
East.
any base in my part of the country because
Because I looked at the map, it's all. It looks like it's all
according
Western.
according to this whole Reichsbürger ideology, we are still Soviet Union here. They don't have the right to be here. And uh, when at my workplace last year, where I worked as an archaeologist,
Oh
and one
wow,
of my one of my colleagues was a former reservist, and he was in the Eastern German army, and he also was in the Western German army later as a reservist. And he had a lot of knowledge about military stuff, and he claimed that the German military, or no, that the NATO military, I think United States, they don't have the right to fly over Eastern Germany. You know, this is something that I have no confirmation of that, but he basically said because this is formally still Soviet occupation zone, they don't have the right to fly over it with military aircraft. So, but I don't know if this is true. It's just what he claimed.
that's interesting. I see. It's so open to interpretation, though, like
Yeah.
we discussed earlier. Let's see. I went and I looked at the composition of the German military, the German
Yeah.
Heer, which is the German army, as of I believe it was January of 2022, they had 62,766 soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. I've got it written down. Um, the German Luftwaffe has 27,500 members,
Mm-hmm.
400 aircraft. The German Marine, which is the German Navy, has 16,500 members, 64 ships, and 56 aircraft. And this all added together makes it, which I didn't look up what was the group that you mentioned earlier that's going to be used probably against any insurgency in your country?
The territorial command.
Yeah, I
I
didn't.
can look it up. Maybe how strong are they?
Yeah, if you're willing to, yeah, check it out real quick. But discounting that, the German armed forces currently have the number of their personnel is 106,766.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Americans, they have 35,000. Trump was going to reduce, he wanted to decrease the number of American soldiers in Germany. He wanted to encourage the Germans to build up their military. He
Mm-hmm.
felt that they weren't shouldering their part of the burden or whatever, But
Mm-hmm.
I did just a quick calculation. If you add the U.S. troops with the German military, it comes out that out of all the armed soldiers, not just German, we're including the Americans here.
Mm-hmm.
America has 32.78% of the military force in your country.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like, and I mean, that's not counting the weapons systems that America has supplied to Germany, all these other things, I mean, it's really apparent. It's an occupied state, unfortunately. It's horrible.
I mean, there's more. There's more. What I have read is that Germany, they say, well, we don't occupy Germany. We're just NATO troops who are conveniently stationed in Germany to protect the alliance.
And then,
but there's more to that, because there's a fact that Germany, by treaties or whatever, does not have the right to ask how many troops actually are there. So there's an official number, but the Americans don't have they're not forced to disclose the actual number, so they can have hidden contingents.
Yes.
And the next thing is, Germany has no right to ask like about troop movements. So the United States can move their troops how they want. They can build new facilities. They can do whatever. And Germany has not the slightest say in all of this. So if you are an ally and this guy is just protecting you, well, they would come and say, well, we want to build a new defensive system here, want to build new barracks there, a new hospital there. Can we maybe have permission to build there? But they don't need to ask. They can just do what they want. And this is clearly a stance by an occupation force, which by their power can just do what they want, So Germany has no right to interfere in any of this.
It's
and there's more. There's another thing in the UN Charter, in the whole UN system. There is an enemy state clause. You can look this up. There's also a Wikipedia article.
Yeah, in UN. Yes, I read about this last night. The enemy state clause. I read about that. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
The enemy state clause, I think it's in the UN Charter. Enemy state clause, of the United Nations Charter, and it says that I think it's Japan and Germany are not fully valid members of the UN. They are enemy. They are by the UN enemy. Japan and Germany are state, and they are enemy. They have the status of enemy states, and this means that any other UN member can just invade these countries if they feel threatened by them, and they don't, because usually, at least that's the UN law. I mean, America violates this all the time,
Yeah.
But UN law says you cannot just invade a country. You have to go to the UN, and there has to be a UN resolution. This country is evil.
It has
Yeah,
to go through a process. Yeah.
exactly. It has to be approved by UN if you want to invade a country. The only exceptions are Japan and Germany, which you can
Yeah.
just invade just like that if you feel threatened by them. So basically, oh, there is a Reichsbürger insurgency in Germany. The Fourth Reich is about to be created. And Poland can say, oh, we feel so threatened. They're going to invade us. Let's
Yeah.
preemptively invade them and take Berlin before it's too late.
Yeah.
And there will be no uh, punishments.
Repercussions,
There will be
no
no repercussion. They
consequences.
are basically, everybody is just allowed to invade us in the UN. So you don't do that with a country that is not occupied. I mean, this is only possible
Exactly.
if you are still an occupied country, and you are not. You don't have the same rights as anybody else in the UN. So it's so obvious, and there's more and more and more. It just keeps going. It's
It just never ends.
no, there,
I
there are
mean,
millions of little details like these in all these treaties and laws and everything.
stipulations and all
Yeah.
these things. Um, let's see here. I looked it up too. Uh, the FRG, which was the Federal Republic of Germany, which is West Germany,
Mhm.
it officially joined the Western Union on October 23rd, 1954, and its status as an occupied country came to an end when the Bonn-Paris conventions came into effect on May the 5th, 1955. That's some interesting numerology if you think
Uh-huh.
about it. Five,
Yeah.
five, five, five.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
The following day, the Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany, became NATO's 15th member. NATO is just a horrible organization. I've done a
Yeah.
lot of reading into Operation Gladio. There was some effects of it in your country,
Hmm.
the CIA, the MI6, but it really was prominent in the countries of Belgium. Their incarnation of it was called the SDRA-8, which
Hmm.
is linked to the Jutro affair, that huge child trafficking, sexual abuse scandal, and
Yeah.
then the years of lead in Italy. NATO is just a supreme force of evil, in my opinion. Always has been.
It's basically just the imperial army. It's
Yes.
I mean, another stance that I take is that I view myself as a citizen of the British Empire. Basically, you have all these maps, all these atlases. You can see, the British Empire. Look, in 1980, in 1880, the British Empire. You see these red countries all over the world, which was the British Empire. And
Yeah.
now after 1990, formally everything is independent, but they have just changed the maps. They just issued new maps with different colors. But
Hmm.
basically, the British Empire, what we call the British Empire, is still there. It has basically conquered the whole world,
Yeah.
and it just disguises itself. And it has nothing to do with Britain, obviously. It's not the British people who are leading the British Empire, but it's basically the same empire. And you could argue maybe it goes back even to the Roman Empire, but what is obvious is that we are living in a huge worldwide empire, and the NATO is basically its army, its goons. It's
Yes.
Praetorian guards, so to say, to
Yeah.
crack down on any insurgents. And what you had, for example, in Libya and all these countries, is just insurgents inside the empire that are just cracked down by the Praetorian guards. That's
Oh
it,
yeah.
you know.
Absolutely correct. I
And
believe that.
like in the Roman Empire, these are completely multicultural. They just look for their salaries. It's just mercenaries hired by the empire to crack down on any resistance. And this is why the so-called nationalism is so demonized, because what is nationalism? It's a local insurgence of a nation that wants to break free from the empire, nothing more. And this is why they have all these racism uh, narratives,
Propaganda and everything.
that demonize local communities who want to break free from the fist of the empire. That's it.
Yeah. I agree completely. You know, I wanted to bring this up quickly. Let's see, we've got about 15 minutes left. That website that you sent to me a few days ago, where you looked up your particular province there in Germany,
Yeah.
how your province is literally it's a fucking corporation, you could say.
Yeah, they are registered as a corporation on dnb.com, I think it is.
Yeah, that's what it
It,
was.
it, it is it
DNB.
is I think Dun and Breton, or what it says. It's like in,
Bradstreet, I think was what it was. Dawn and Bradstreet, I
yeah,
think.
something like that. I think it's in England, and it's a company that created a register of
Of
all
all
companies
public companies and
in
private.
all companies in the world, and give them an identification number so that
Yes.
you can find them and do business with them easier, I think. And what the Reichsbürger also argue is, they prove that Germany, or one of their proofs for the argument that Germany is just a company, you know, is that all bodies in Germany, all administrative bodies, or every court, every police office, everything is, which is deemed an official authoritative body, is
Yeah.
registered as a company in
With a
England.
profit.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
with
mind blowing.
even with a sales revenue,
Yes.
estimated sales revenue, and this would actually prove the fact that when you pay taxes, you are signing a contract with a private company, and what you give them in money is their sales revenue. They just sold you something. They
Yes.
sold you a piece of paper
A
and you
bill of
paid it.
goods. A bill
Yeah.
of goods is what we
And
call it.
I'm not saying that I confirm all of this. I'm laying out for you the Reichsbürger ideology. I didn't have the time to confirm if all of this is true, because, for example, the other argument from the other side would be, well, um, for example, your local municipality is just registered as a company just for ease of business. If they want to do business with a Scottish bricklayer to reform their house, their parliament building, well, they can better communicate with them because they're registered
Yes.
there. But
It's like a phone book for all the
yeah,
businesses.
but but
Um,
um it would be interesting to see if like in other countries, Australia, Britain, United States, if also there, like, your local court is a registered business. Is it like that or not? I mean,
um, I was going to say, I looked up the state of Tennessee, and
hmm
it's not like that, at least here
hmm
in this state, as far as I know. The most, like in your province, for instance, it was just the province itself was the highest earner, the most profitable.
hmm
Here in Tennessee, it was the Tennessee Valley Authority,
hmm
which that is who produces our energy. The Tennessee Valley Authority, a lot of people here in Appalachia were opposed to it because what they did is they dammed up. There's a lot of rivers here in East Tennessee that flow out of the Appalachian Mountains
yeah,
into the Mississippi River. The Tennessee River, I just live about 5 minutes from the nearest lake. It's called Chickamauga Lake. I go
hmm
fishing there a lot,
yeah,
but it is formed by the TVA, which Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that son of a bitch, forced in with his New Deal.
hmm
And that's who we pay our power bill. They also operate,
hmm
unfortunately, they also operate a couple of nuclear reactors that are within an hour of my current location. I have mixed feelings about the TVA. I enjoy fishing at the
can,
lake.
can, can, can you
Oh,
re- can
go
you
ahead.
repeat that, please? You stopped at, we pay our power bill. What else? Then you phased out.
Oh, yeah, it does that sometimes. I'm sorry. That is who we pay our electric bill,
Yeah, what
our
else?
gas bill, our natural gas bill as well.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that is who the money goes to, is the TVA.
But it's just the energy costs.
Yes,
My question is, for example,
the courts and the
you
administrative.
have like a county, right?
Yes, sir.
You live in a certain county, so the administration of that county, is that, or the court of that county, is that a registered business?
I didn't see it on that website.
So
I would
this is
have
at
to go
least
back and look.
this is at least interesting, because if I just type in Sachsen-Anhalt, which is my state, and I make Sachsen-Anhalt and then Duns number, it lists basically over 1,000 official administrative bodies, like every municipality, every court, every police, everything, the government, even the minister, the prime minister of my country, of my state, is a registered business.
That's remarkable.
This is over 1,100 entries there.
Yes.
So if you look up state of Tennessee DUNS number, do there appear all of your towns, everything as businesses?
No, it doesn't. At least to my knowledge.
So this is at least interesting. This would confirm the argument by the Reichsbürger, who say that you don't have administrative bodies. These are all private companies set up by the Allies.
I was gonna put. Do you care if I go back in our conversation, Ratatoskr? I was gonna put. Let's see. I'm gonna put the link to the DNB website. So if anyone in the audience wanted to check this out for themselves, Okay, I'll put the link in real quick. Give me just a second. Give me just a moment. I apologize, guys.
And you can also put in this what I sent you, this Sachsen-Anhalt.
Yeah, that's what I'll do then.
DUNS numbers, so other people can
confirm this.
Yeah, can confirm this, that all the municipalities and everything is registered there.
Yeah, let me copy this. Copy. All right, here we go. And I just posted it right now in the chat. That is the link. And they have a search bar where you can search up all these different states, countries.
Yeah.
I did Tennessee, and the TVA was the highest profiting one, I guess you could say, as far as profit margin goes.
Mm-hmm.
And this reminded me. This reminds me of what you said, how it's like your entire state, the administrative body, is a corporation. It reminds me of what was done in the Vatican City, the City of London, and Washington, D.C. This same thing was done in Washington, D.C. back in 1871, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there was a video, I think I'd seen it to you, about this girl.
And hey, can I quickly interrupt you?
Yes, go ahead.
And I heard that the people who live in Washington, D.C. and are registered there, they have no right to vote in the U.S. election. Is this true?
I don't know about vote, but I have heard this before. Don't hold me to it, but I have heard before that if you are born in the District of Columbia, which is Washington, D.C., if you are born there, you are not allowed to run for president of the United States. Don't hold me to that, but I have heard that before. It could be incorrect, but I have heard that. I don't know if I haven't looked it up to confirm it, but I have heard that before. Anyways, that's pretty eye-opening about how your state, and I imagine it's the same for all the other German provinces as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's wild. It's very wild. Anyways, guys, we've been going for almost 2 hours. Ratatoskr, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a very good conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for helping to clarify and explain a lot of these things that our media will never explain to us. You have to ask someone who is a citizen there.
The media, as I said, the media in Germany would never explain this. Nobody would explain this because, as I said, they want to silence this all to death, because I think there's something to it. If not, they wouldn't do these. Maybe I can also elaborate on the story of the coup d'etat a little bit more. So I don't know what they told you, but they told us in the media that it was like 3,000 policemen.
Yes,
who
that's what I read.
In a whole day they invaded lots of households, even in Italy, and they
it was in Italy as well.
And they arrested a total. That's what I heard, and they arrested a total of 25 people, which were all like old people, and there was even some noble guy, with noble
Prince
heritage.
Prince Heinrich the 13th.
He would have been the new Kaiser or whatever, and they had like 2 air guns or something, so it was completely ridiculous. But what is interesting is that even the former head of our Verfassungsschutz, which is like the FBI or like the CIA, like the biggest interior secret service, you could say, the secret police. The former head of our secret police, he told publicly, he said that this is all in theater play. You know, it's like, because they informed the media, several media outlets and journalists have confessed that they were informed 2 weeks prior to the raid that this would happen, and that they should be ready to take the pictures, you know, and everything.
Yeah, for the
And
photo op.
yeah,
Yes.
and so this former head of the Secret Service, he said that this would be outrageous if they had planned a raid against a real terrorist group when he was head of the Secret Service. You know, they would never have
Never
informed.
leaked it.
They would have never leaked it, because this would compromise the whole.
Yes, the whole operation.
The whole operation. You know, he said this would be against all regulations. They would never pull this off, and for him, this was laughable. You know, it's like,
You know, and that's interesting too. I meant to mention this earlier. In our media articles regarding this event, they are saying they're trying to link the Reichsbürger movement with QAnon over here in the United States.
which
they
it
say
is.
that is.
Which it is. There are many in this whole movement. There are a lot of lunatics. You know, there's you can find.
It draws a lot of.
It's you can find
people.
anything. It's like a melting pot of all dissident
mindsets and ideas.
Anybody who, for example, in the Corona crisis, who woke up a little bit about the state oppression, you know, and started challenging the status quo, like, or thinking about the world a little bit more, you know, he ends up maybe in this pot, and maybe he believes in UFOs or whatever, you know, like you can put anybody in there. Like the media could also say, the Reichsbürger, they believe that the Nazis fled with UFOs and they're coming back with their flying saucers and take over again. And of course, some of them believe that 100%, you know, like, of course, but you could write anything in there, you know, you can find anybody in this type of movement.
Oh yeah, definitely. There is one question that I'm going to put out. Can you see the screen, Ratatoskr? I'm going to put it on the screen. It's in German. I'm not going to try to even attempt. There's a question for you.
I've never heard about this. She asks, do you know if the major AD Maximilian Eder is still in prison? But I don't know about this person. Maybe I think there was a major who former major of the military who spoke out, I think, against the Corona restrictions or something, and they put him in prison. I think this is what she refers to, but I don't know if he's still in prison.
Okay. Good question. Thank you for asking that. Anyways, let's see. Ratatoskr, I want to thank you again so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
I hate that we have to end it here, but I got a couple of things I need to do before sundown. But I wanted to say that the door is always open. If you want to come back on, I would love to have you. I think we had a really good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
I also enjoyed it a lot.
Absolutely.
And it was really, how do you say it? Burning under my fingernails. How do you say, when a topic you really want to talk about it?
Yes.
So you know, I was really glad I could talk about it, because, as I said, I realized this is a very interesting topic. I'm not sure about the significance. You know, maybe it's just all another distraction. You know, because you know about the rabbit holes, how they can pull you away from the more important stuff, and maybe this is just another of these stupid rabbit holes, you know.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. Maybe there's a lot of significance to it, you know. But
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of significance to the basic premise of the Reichsbürger movement. I think there's a lot of potential there, but the media and everything is trying to lump in all these other things to detract from the legitimate complaint that the Reichsbürger movement has. They are trying to say it's just a bunch of nonsense. You could say it's like how I think, flat Earth is injected into a lot of our circles and some of these other wild conspiracy theories, which, I mean, not to besmirch anyone that believes the world's flat or anything. I disagree, but whatever, you know. Anyways, thank you again so much. The door
Yeah,
is
you're
always
welcome,
open,
sir.
and
Yeah,
we will have to do this again here soon.
yeah.
I want to.
Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Oh, and I was going to say too, Ratatoskr, he has a YouTube channel. He has a I've put the links to all
Yeah,
his channels in the box below, and check him out. He makes some good content.
thank you very much.
Anyways, thank you guys, and Ratatoskr, I will talk to you here soon. Thank you so much again,
You're
and
welcome. Thanks a lot.
audience, thank you for attending, and I'll have another stream hopefully up here next week. We've got another interesting guest to talk to. Y'all have a good night. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.